Hello, and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and today we are going to be looking at some of my favorite versions of Shazam. So uh, looking forward to this discussion and start off with an intro about by making Cavill this guy again. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I've been so late to this one, but today we're going to look at some of my favorite versions of the character of Shazam or Captain Marvel. I guess we should start with the earliest Captain Marvel comics first, and then make our way down. Some of them are not just my favorite, but they're also like important versions of the character. So, just to start off with, you can take a look at. I mainly have digital comics these days. I should actually buy some more. I should probably buy some more, like, you know, paperback comics or graphic novels and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I haven't been doing that recently because it would just be too many comics I have. But you know, maybe there'll come a time when comic books actually do have, like, they go up in value again, because, like, so I think more and more people are buying digital these days, so it might be worth actually getting a collection of comics from today. But just so you can have a look at my general comic collection first. I have more comics than this, obviously, because I've got an account with Comixology as well. These are just some of my comics, and each week in this show that I want to be doing with you, I've also got a lot of, like, books, some interesting books here. Got a lot more books than this as well. I still haven't finished this Suicide Squad, the official. Uh, it was basically it was the book version, or the novelization of the film. And I wanted to read that because there was actually some. Apparently, this is the closest you're ever going to get to the Ayer cut. Until maybe they decide to release it, and I'm one of those people who actually am interested in the Ayer cut. But what I was reading in here was fairly interesting, and I would definitely like to eventually see that Ayer cut. So I have to remember to finish that. Yeah, these are just here some of my books, which I've read most of. I haven't read the Black Dahlia by James Ellroy, which is one of the ones I want to read. But yeah, those are the books I have. But here are my. Oh, I can go only to comics. That's great. So I can go to books and comics. Fantastic. So these are just my comics. Lot of Superman, lot of Shazam, Flash, Martian Manhunter. I'm a DC guy, apart from the X-Men. Generation X do have King Arthur there, which I read. Great book. But yeah, I'm a DC guy, DC head. Apart from, Judge Dredd, that kind of thing, I tend to stick to my DC titles. Luther, great comic. So when we come to the week where I discuss my favorite versions of Superman and favorite comics of Superman, I think that's going to be very interesting. But today we are going to be doing Shazam. Or Captain Marvel, as they call him. Hey, whoever's watching, just wanted to say hello. Hope you can say hello as well. So let me go to this. I wanted to go from the earliest version and read some of that comic with you, and then we'll read some of my favorite versions. after, which will be on Kindle. But just so that we can go in some kind of order, because I don't think I've read the first Captain Marvel comic. So it might well be interesting to read together. How did Captain Marvel start? I no, sorry, scrap that. I have read it, but I haven't read it for a very, very long time. Um, so we've got Captain Marvel Junior, Captain Marvel. I wonder if it's under Wiz Comics because it's a bit confusing. I've got here, you look up Captain Marvel, and then you've got Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, and then and the early Captain Marvel. Okay, we've got this till 1966, and then we've got a different Captain Marvel. It looks like completely different character. So I'm wondering if it's under Wiz what comics. If I look up that, what do I get? I'll share screen with you so you can see what I'm looking up. Wiz Comics here. Got nothing under Wiz Comics. Called yet. I didn't think that would do anything apart from confuse it. So let's look up what was Captain Marvel or Shazam's first comic called. So it was Wiz Comics number 2. So do they even have it is the question. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, so we have, I think here, yep. So Wiz Comics number 2. And we will start by reading let's read the first 10 pages of how did Captain Marvel's adventures begin? So this was, ooh, what was the date here? February 1940. Interesting times in human history. And this is the first ever Captain Marvel. Love the suit. Wish they could make the suit a little bit more like this in the new ones. Extra Wiz Comics Extra introduces Captain Marvel, Ibis the Invincible, Golden Arrow. Oh, these are cool. Spy Smasher, Scoop Smith, Lance O'Casey, and Dan Dare. All new, all different. Wow, I'd like to see some of these other characters like the Golden Arrow. So, Orny looking for details of our big lucky $725 cash contest on the last page of this issue. Who would have known these would become $1 billion IPs? I don't know if they'll ever make another Shazam movie. I hope maybe they'll do some animated stuff with the Shazam family. And maybe you might get a TV show for HBO Max because I think there's a lot more there to be mined, and I'll talk about that when I get to some of my favorite comics of Shazam. And I'll tell you what made me first love Shazam in the first place. So, night in the city. Batson, papers, sir. I have no home. I sleep in the subway station. It's warm there. Why aren't you home in bed, son? Follow me. You know what's funny about this? I've always found this weird about the Shazam origin, and I would have loved for them to have played on this in the movie. Is that basically Billy Batson follows a stranger who's probably like a serial killer into a train station, and that's what actually first, gets him to become Shazam. Like in the 1940s, this is not what you want kids reading, you know. Imagine like some kids reading Shazam and he's like, and there's some man who's read the Shazam comics as well at around that time. Maybe some serial killer dude, and he figures, wow, this is a good scheme. So he gets some kid and he's like, wears the same thing, and he says, yeah, I'm gonna take you to become like a superhero if you follow me down the stairs. Um, could have been a ruse. That sounds like an actual serial killer ruse. Okay, so where are we going? Wait and see. Certainly strange. So this is just our Shazam Captain Marvel read along today, where I'm going to look at some of my favorite versions of the character and how he's changed over time, and what I think is good that they kept in, say, the movie or other media about him, and what I think perhaps they could have changed up a little bit. Dragon's eyes. I really want to find out about this Golden Arrow character at the beginning. So before we move on from this, I'll have a look at that Golden character, Golden Arrow character. There you go, the seven deadly enemies of man, seven sins there. Shazam! I love the way, this funny thing about this old comics is that, especially this one, the comic is actually telling you what should be drawn in the panel. So, or sorry, the speech, no, not the speech bubbles, the description bubbles of what's going on are actually telling you what is happening in the actual panel, which is actually how you script the comic. I kind of love that, like a huge black cloud, a blinding lightning flash, a deafening fall of thunder, uh, a peal of thunder form out of the nowhere as the old man speaks his name. And then that's what you actually see on the page. And another interesting thing for me is actually that um it's a question I've always had, is like, these are such basic, simple children's stories, but even in the structure of them, there's something really mythic about it. And I wonder if these writers knew at the time, or if they were just thinking, hey, I'm just writing a silly little story about a little boy going into a train station and meeting a wizard, like who allows him to become like the champion of magic. It's so interesting that, it's all there. This is like basically what happens in the film, like a serious 100, $200 million film. But it's so mythic that you even from this version you can see how you can change and make this story a little bit more sophisticated, and actually you've got a really interesting, you know, heroic story that's on the same level as something like Hercules. So he says, for 3,000 years, I have used the wisdom, strength, stamina, power, courage, and speed the gods have given me to battle the forces of evil, which every day threaten to extinguish man from the face of the earth. 3,000 years? Yes, son. And during that time, I have seen everything, known everything that happened throughout the world, from the highest to the lowest. The histodrama. Stranger danger. That guess they weren't teaching that in the 40s. Absolutely true, Miss Susie. I'm like this dude. They are. They. I'm surprised there isn't a serial killer called the Captain Marvel serial killer. You know, like how they give them those names, Jack the Ripper. I'm surprised there isn't a serial killer called that. Maybe he was never caught, because this is a perfect way, like, just say, "Oh, you want to become Captain Marvel, kid? Follow me into this train station." Uh, oh, that's sad. I didn't know that. I couldn't. I mean, I didn't remember that. So his dad actually, mum, when they died, gave the uncle. That's something I would have liked to see maybe a little bit of in the movies. I don't know, but like I like the idea that his mother just abandoned him as well. Um, the funny thing about Shazam, this new latest Shazam movie, is I think it would have played better if there was an earlier Shazam movie that was more like this movie, where Billy's kind of innocent, and the reason he's chosen is because he's got a heart of gold. I think it would have been interesting to see the difference between that version of Shazam in the movies and then the newer Shazam, where they kind of deconstruct the character a little bit. Not too much. He's still got the essence of the character, but they play around with the themes. One thing we should mention though is, I'm a huge Superman fan. Superman is my favorite character of all time. But a lot of people like to think that Shazam is a copy of Superman. And in fact, DC even said that he was a copy of Superman. I don't know how they got away with that argument in the 1940s or 50s. It should have never been brought to court. This clearly, looking at this story and Superman's story, is very, very different. Superman is not a child that, you know, becomes a superhero, clearly. The whole reason for him getting his powers is very, very different from Superman. So unless they were saying super strength and flight were trademarked to Superman, which is complete rubbish, because then Superman could have been sued by, you know, Greek mythology and other kind of things, of that kind of nature. So there was no reason for Shazam to get sued, and it would be so interesting. I mean, I'm glad that Captain Marvel is part of DC, but it would have been so interesting to have Wiz Comics around now. I wonder if it would, like having a trio of comic book companies being on top, if that wouldn't have been actually a little bit fun. So you would have had Wiz Comics, Marvel Comics, and DC Comics. And people would have been like, "Oh, who would win, Superman or Shazam, or sorry, Superman or Captain Marvel, or Golden Arrow or Green Arrows?" Would have been cool in an alternate world that probably happened. So I'm reading now the panel that it starts. Um, all my life I've fought injustice and cruelty, but I am an old man now. My time is almost up. You shall be my successor. Merely by speaking my name, you can become the strongest and mightiest man in the world. Captain Marvel, speak my name. Shazam! Oh yeah, the block falls on him and he dies. Yeah. By the way, if there's any character that you would like me to do a comic book read along, let me know. I think the next one I'm gonna do is Wonder Woman, since she's my uh, she's my second favorite superhero. But there's so many comics of hers that I love that I wanna share with people. So extra read all about it. That's where I'm at. Yeah, I'll tell you what. This is a better written comic than a lot of the old DC comics I read. I can see why this started out selling Superman, because like the early Superman comics, they're not as the dialogue isn't as good actually. Okay, so cool. So this is the beginning of uh, Shazam. I'm gonna finish reading this book. I haven't read it in a long time, like a really long time. But that was the beginning origins of the character we now know as Shazam. So one of the skipping now to one of my favorite versions of Shazam. Um, I'll start off with uh, the Shazam New 52. Now, this is highly, highly controversial. Some people love this. I think a lot of people love it. Well, there's not so many Shazam fans, to be fair. Not so many people read Shazam in general. But um, of the people who read Shazam, I think a lot of people understand what Jeff Johns was doing, but I think a lot of people stop right at the beginning of the book because they can't accept any of the changes that were made by Jeff Johns to Shazam. Okay, so this is, let's see if this is right. Yeah, this is the new 52 Shazam. Now, my whole thing when it comes to comic book characters is, does the writer, when they're rewriting the story, keep to the core of the character? Not who the character is necessarily, but what the character represents mythologically. And some of these characters have unfortunately been very, very underwritten. So, Shazam in the early, like during the early days, his early comics was very well written. But after he went to DC, they never really updated him for a modern audience. They did every once in a while. There were comic book writers who obviously remembered and enjoyed the times when them as well as Elvis would be sitting around, because Elvis was a big Shazam fan. Um, would be sitting around reading, the Wiz comics. So they took a crack at it and developed the mythology to be a little bit richer. However, I think Jeff Johns did one of the best jobs. So Wonder Woman is always interesting. Wonder Woman is always interesting. Shazam Origin is more mythic, where Superman is more sci-fi, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that they're both mythic, in the sense of um they both can be seen as modern day renderings of Greek mythological concepts. Like, Superman comes down from the stars, he's sent from God, essentially, given to these farmers, these innocent salt of the earth farmers who raise him well, and he uses his kind of Herculean powers to go on and help others. Uh, but I think you're right in that the sense of Superman stories lend themselves better to science fiction when they're exploring realms of science fiction. I think uh, they do better in that kind of realm. Whereas I think with Billy Batson, when he's exploring stuff more to do with magic, and when he's got a villain who's like a sci-fi, a science villain, it's not always as compelling as when he has a magic villain or something like that. Whereas Superman, when he has a science-based villain, it's always more interesting than when he has like a magic villain. Wonder Woman, when she has like a mythological villain, it tends to be more interesting than when she has like any other type of villain. So yeah, I agree with you on that. So this is the beginning of Jeff Johns' Shazam. I love Gary Frank's artwork as well, so that's probably one of the reasons why I particularly enjoy this book. So we'll read the opening pages, and you know, I can understand why they use this as the um, basis of the film. You know, a lot of people would have liked to see a more innocent like Billy Batson, but so let's look at the beginning, and then we'll talk about the differences in character between Billy Batson in this and other versions of Billy Batson. So Billy Batson is trouble, but trouble is relative. For centuries, science has ruled the world. Now magic is returning, an ancient, brutal evil with it. If the world is to survive the plague of horror on the horizon, Billy Batson must embrace his greatest wish and learn his greatest lesson. Billy Batson must become Shazam. And that's how it starts. As I said, looking at the Gary Frank artwork here, very beautiful, beautifully rendered. And it's like a storyboard almost for a film. It's really, kind of interesting in that sense. So, happened on a normal day. So I'm starting there, and then we read along. It was on my way to work, like always. Remember, I don't remember doing anything special. Um, I walked into the building. I got into the elevator, and I got into the elevator with everyone, and that's when things got weird. When the elevator doors closed, there was some kind of electrical surge. The lights went out, and when they came back on, everyone else was gone. The elevator started falling faster and faster. I thought I was going to die until I just stopped. The doors opened. Tell me, guys, if it's annoying me reading out the speech bubbles, you can tell me and then I'll stop and you can just read it yourself. But it's just so you can keep along with where I'm reading. I was somewhere else. And that's when things get a little fuzzy. And then you see here that this guy has entered into the Rock of Eternity, the famous Rock of Eternity. I heard someone call my name. I followed it. I saw a row of thrones, some of them broken and shattered. They were all empty except one. There was an old man with a long, shaggy beard sitting on it. He said something about being worthy. He asked me questions. There was a lot of smoke, lights, and the old man seemed to get agitated. No, not you. There was another explosion of lightning, and suddenly I was back in the elevator. And you remember this scene actually from the film. Um, so in the film, this is the beginning where Dr. Savannah's asking everyone how, about their experiences of being in the, just finding themselves in an elevator or a car or something like that, and then transported into this different realm, the Rock of Eternity. Um, and suddenly I was back in the elevator. One thing I'd say about this comic book is it's tonally different from the film. Although the first film follows this a lot, it does have a tonal difference, which is this book's a little bit darker than the film. And I think they could have gone with that tone in the film and it may have worked a little bit better. It doesn't take away anything from the comedy and humor and heart of the story in the film, but it's not like Shazam is like some kind of wisecracking, you know, person. He's just a super streetwise kid in this. So I was back home. I don't know who the old man was. The guy seemed kind of mean. He didn't say his name. He just said Shazam, Shazam, Shazam. What do you think, Dr. Savannah? Beautiful pictures. Now, one thing I don't like is they followed this version of Dr. Savannah, and I really think they should have followed. I think they should have followed the version of Dr. Savannah from the old comics because with the weird ears. And he also, yeah, he just looks a little bit older, a little bit more decrepit in the comic books. You'll see another version of Dr. Savannah that I actually enjoy in another comic book that I'm going to read with you next. So I think 37 people from across the world with no connection whatsoever seem to share a similar experience. They walked into an elevator or out of a tent or onto a bus and in a burst of lightning ended up somewhere else, somewhere strange. This isn't the first claim of mystical abduction, Gregory. When these accounts are taken as a whole, the details start to tell a tale that correlates almost exactly to the legend of Black Adam. And here again, we have another major difference between the film and the book. And this was Dwayne Johnson's doing. In the original book, the first book, we have Black Adam as the villain. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit um, so that we can go to when we first meet Billy Batson. So, because this is the controversial bit, this is what a lot of older Shazam fans don't like about this version of the character. Okay, so this is Billy. Earth to Billy Batson. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Glover. I saw some kids and their parents up there. Their arms were full of presents and they were drinking hot chocolate. I think I can smell it from here. Do you like hot chocolate? And he's saying this to the Vasquez parents, right? Who want to foster him. We like it very much, Billy. Billy, the Vasquezes came all the way down here to see you. You should stop staring out the window. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Glover. I don't mean to be rude. Um, it's all right. The holiday season can be hard. Yeah. Tell us a little more about you. Like what? What do you like to do? I like to read. I read a lot. I like to do my podcast on the social work Mrs. Glover does, and I like to organize my room. I like to cook. I like to help fix things. I like learning. I guess I like what everyone likes, really. So Miss Glover, I think Billy would really enjoy our home. Your home? Wait, is this for real? Most people don't want to take the old kid. They go for the babies and the toddlers. Why me? We already have foster kids your age, Billy. A really nice group, and the school district is first class. Cool. We'd be really happy if you would allow us to be your new foster parents, if that's okay with you. That'd be that'd be okay with me. Um, then it's settled, isn't it? The paperwork's ready for signatures. I can bring Billy home as soon as this afternoon. Great. Okay. So then we meet, just I'll leave the reading for a while to the next panel so you can catch up with me. Then the next panel, they say bye. And then he goes, "What a couple of idiots." So this was the big controversial thing that they did to Billy Batson. And I wasn't even a fan of Captain Marvel when I read this. And because I've been reading Wonder Woman and what they'd done in the New 52 with her, I was I was like, okay, the New 52 has done it again. They've taken another character and like just completely shitting on their legacy. Luckily, I gave the book a little bit more of a chance, and I continued reading because it gets really excellent from here. But what I will say is, I understand those fans who are like reluctant and saw this and that was just enough, because Billy Batson is chosen by the wizard because he's pure of heart, and this kid does not seem to be pure of heart. He seems to be a rotten kid, streetwise kid, you know, just angry and sullen. But what does make sense to me is, one, Shazam as a character had not, even though he'd evolved um, through the 80s, through the 90s, no one had taken everything across all of those books with all of that love, that with a lot of love they have for the character, and told a different type of story and looked at it realistically of, hey, who would this kid be if he was on the streets all the time, and how would he feel, how would he be, even if he was a really good kid at heart, could he maintain that? And so, to me, I think the book goes a little too far. Even till today, I think the book makes Billy a little bit too much of an asshole in the beginning of the book. But I see what Jeff Johns was trying to do. I think in the film they tempered it down a little bit to make the kid more likable, because he's searching for his mother and stuff like that. He's not just a pure asshole like like the one in this book. But I get it. Basically, I do get it. Man, I wish I was already an adult and out of your stupid system. You better not screw this up. I'm running out of foster homes, Billy Batson. Stop stressing, Miss Glover. I'll get along with these people well enough. We made a deal this time. You stay out of my life, and I'll stay out of yours. Billy Batson, you are the most unpleasant boy I've ever had the unpleasure of knowing. Yeah, tell me something I don't know. So he's a really rotten kid in this, right? And then we're introduced to the new Shazam family. Now, this is the part of the criticism of Shazam that I don't like, the new 52 Shazam that I don't get, because I think the family aspect, which was always in the Shazam books, but had never really been highlighted before, is the single best thing Jeff Johns did for this character. And putting these different characters, these foster family in, adding a couple more family members than, Mary and Freddie, the original family members, was an awesome idea. And they still haven't, the films have kind of capitalized on that idea, but I still want that Goonies style movie where you use these kind of kids like Darla, Eugene, Pedro, um as that kind of thing, like they're like, going on a little magic adventure, and they end up, like, while they're in kid form, not in the Shazam form, in the kid form, going on those little adventures, and then they turn into superheroes. That's what I think. I think they focused on, in the films, a little bit too heavily on Freddie and Billy, and didn't give, even Mary didn't get enough, I think, in those movies. And she's an OG legacy character. But yeah, like, of the other legacy characters created in this comic book, I think they're really fun. And if they were fleshed out a little bit more in the later comics, sorry, in the, how would you put it? If they were fleshed out a little bit more in the movies, then I think they could have been really become iconic characters in their own right. So that's him. I thought he was our age. He looks short. Looks like an easy score to me. Don't even think about it, Freddie. I can't see. And then who's that lady with him? That's his social worker. They look so nice. Let's go get ready. Yay! Billy Batson's going to love it here. And then, of course, they come into the house. This is the Vasquez's house. I'm going to skip a bit here, so but I'll let you, if you're reading, to continue with me. So they really hate each other. Old maid, pest, prune face. Honey, I think they're here. And then hi Billy, and then they pretend again because they don't want to see each other anymore. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Vasquez. Billy, you have an absolutely beautiful home, just beautiful. Okay, so I'll let you carry on reading there. So you can carry on reading there, and then for the next bit. When I get to the Kindle, we'll be able to actually go from each panel to each panel, so it'll be a little bit better. And then welcome Billy home, and where we meet the Shazam for the first time. And I'll let us read the first page of the Shazam because I think they're so cute. They're such a cool family. So hello Billy. Um, it's nice to meet you, Billy. Hi Billy. I'll help you with this. You see Freddy stealing his wallet. So, as opposed to Freddy in the film version, who's like a huge superhero mark, this Freddy is not. He's just like he's a bit like he's just a chancer basically in this version. You know, he'll steal people's wallets. He's a little bit tricky, a little bit streetwise like Billy. Um, but he's not. As I said, he's not. How would you put it? He's not like a huge superhero fanboy like he was in the film. I get why they did that in the film. It made sense. It had a lot of humor to it. But again, this style makes it more like a kind of a Goonies kind of movie. His hat smells funny. Anyone want some hot chocolate? I do. And Billy's just like hates this. This is like his nightmare. This is my nightmare. If I met a family like this, like it's just, oh my God. I do like hot chocolate. Come on, guys, be cool. Um, how about some introductions, kids? Um, Mary should go first. Try and stop her. So you can read all the introductions to these characters. Yes, well, I'm Mary. I've been living here for as long as I can remember. So if you have any questions, you can ask me for help. And this is my rabbit Hoppy. Hoppy, of course, who is a major character in the Shazam lore. He's like Mary's Talkie Townie. So Talkie Townie is a talking tiger, which is one of the things I love about these Shazam stories. Just the crazy, goofy, straight up comic booky stuff that happens in them. With like anthropomorphic tigers and animals talking to them, fighting alligator people. Like just cool stuff, like little wizards, like fighting them and stuff. This should have been, as I said, a cross between Harry Potter and Goonies, but with superheroes. And I think they would have had a real market for that if they had have, you know, toned down some of the MCU style humor that was especially in the second movie. But I like both movies, but um I think that if they had delved more into these magic realms, they could have had something very different than just this plain superhero movie. So he was on his way to becoming another casualty of cosmetic testing until I rescued him from the puppy mill pet store. But I was the one who distracted the owner, Freddie Freeman here. Never seen a fire alarm I didn't pull. That's Freddie. Naughty boy. Take it away, amigo. I'm Pedro, and I'm Pedro. Pedro is the weakest link of the new kids. Like, I'm not wanting to be bad. Maybe it's fine to have like a quiet one there or whatever. But honestly, if there was one, I would be like, mind you taking him away. it would be Pedro. I think Eugene serves a purpose. So Eugene in this one, we're going to see Eugene, the Asian one. Um, he's like a nerd, and he's like a super nerd, really high IQ, and he's top of his class at school. I like the fact that the movies didn't make him that, because I think that's too much of a stereotype. Like, oh, the Asian one's the clever one. I'm They did it a little bit. They went back on that in the second movie for some reason. But I liked when he was just a gamer, in the movie, and I actually liked him in the movie, and I really wish they had used him more. He was another character that I thought was fun, but they didn't really expand on him enough, so that he could be extra fun. And of course, there's my favorite Dollar of the new group, and I think it's probably um, everyone's favorite from the new group who likes these characters. At least admits everyone kind of, Dollar's cute, like Dollar's sweet, right? And she's another character. She's black, but being black is not what defines her. It's just she happens to be black, but really what she is she's just a sweetheart at heart. And believes the best in everyone. And I really like Darla as a character for that. So, do you have anything to say, Billy? Maybe if I could breathe, because Darla's hugging him so much. And yeah, so that's the first pages of Shazam New 52. Again, you can see that the comedy kind of comes from the situation. It's not people cracking wise. And I wish they had stuck to that a little bit more. I can take you to the page where he first becomes Shazam, so you can compare a bit of that. But I'll have you can have a read of this first, because I think this is an interesting panel. Good. I think I hope you're all caught up. I had to switch off something in the oven. So I'm not your brother, and we're not really family. They kind of did this in the movie. None of you really are. And then she gets upset and cries. And I love that Mary Marvel is like very big sistery to her. Darla, wait, smooth dude. And then you find out a little bit about Darla's origin, which I think should have been in this movie, in the movies. You find out a little bit about all of their origins really here. So as if Darla didn't have enough to cry about, that little girl's parents aren't dead like mine or in prison like Freddie's, which, that would have given so much more depth. Just those little lines, little lines like that would have given depth to these characters, and they didn't put that in the movies, and I think they should have. They just didn't want her. They told her that when they left her here, she cried herself to sleep every night for months. So that was too much for me. That was like, Billy Batson saying "soju" after that was too much. You don't care about anyone apart from but yourself, do you? And then you see him, whatever, like she even knows me. And then you see him take out Tokitani, and like anyone does. And you see like he's longing for his parents, man. And then he says, "I didn't mean to make her cry." I like that, but he clearly has a conscience. And weird. And then we see the next thing. Are you awake, huh? Billy's awake. Hooray! Now we can eat breakfast. So she's already fine with him. So I think they did a better job with Darla even in the comics than they did with the movie. But I think they captured the spirit in the comic anyway. Oh, sorry, in the movie anyway, which was good. So I'm starving. I hope we're having waffles. I thought she was mad at me. Darla doesn't get mad at anyone. I think there's something wrong with her short-term memory. There's nothing wrong with her, Eugene. Staying mad is just a waste of time. So, guys, do you wanna have a look at when he turns into Shazam, or we can move to the next comic? So I like adding the Goonies spin to it. Would have liked to see all the kids have more adventures in the movie. Yeah, that's what I think. I think that they kind of did, but they didn't do it enough. So I think people, I got what they were trying to do, but I think the biggest thing and I never understood it in the marketing, why they kept saying it was big meets superhero, because big is not. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but isn't Goonies more popular than Big? Like more people watch the Goonies now than they do watch Big, right? And they could have said, "Oh, this is kind of Stranger Things or Goonies meets superheroes," and I think it would have people would have got the idea more, and it would have been more popular. Well, tell me if you think I'm wrong about that. Mm. So I'm going to show you one panel of when he actually turns into Shazam. But it's a great comic, honestly. It reads like a film. It reads like, honestly, like a storyboard for a film. I've got Talkie Downey in here. Oh, this is where you see Black Adam. Black Adam is a badass in this, and it would have been great to have him in the movie instead. But we'll do that another day because we can't read all through this. So I'm just gonna show you when he becomes Shazam, so you can see how he's acting and talking, and you can maybe compare it to Zachary Levi's performance. So this is Billy and Freddy talking after he first meets him as Shazam. A wizard, a grumpy one. The wizard made you old? I'm not sure how old. And dressed you like that? I told you he was weird. He cast some kind of spell on me. And then he killed over. Maybe he died giving you his magic powers. Magic powers. This is crazy. This is crazy. Billy, wait. Honk honk. Um, and this is the Briars bullies that are from the movie. Like you actually see them in the movie, but you don't get to see their dad. I mean, it is such a pity that The Rock told them. The Rock could have got his own movie anyway, but the fact that The Rock spoiled the origin of Shazam, well, no, not spoiled. The movie was still great, but He said that he doesn't want to be in Shazam 1. That's what screwed up the franchise. Because Zachary Levi wasn't a big enough star to carry. So Zachary Levi wasn't a big enough star to carry the franchise by himself. They needed something like The Rock in the first movie to get people to have eyeballs on this. Because I think with the Shazam movies, the problem isn't that they're bad. It's that not enough people have seen them. And I think if more people saw them, there'll be more fans of it. I've never shown anyone the Shazam film that didn't like it. And I've shown people all types of DC movies. And with all of them, there was one or two people who would dislike Wonder Woman, or a couple of people who didn't like, V for Vendetta even. No one has said to me they didn't like Shazam. So it goes to show. So, oh my God, that was awesome. I know, haha. So what do we do next? Anything we want. My days of listening to anyone are over. Hey, let's buy some beer. Do you have any money? Maybe I should find some normal clothes first. And then you find out about, Shazam hasn't got electrical powers in this. He's actually got magical powers. It just comes out as like electric. So it's actually magical spells that he can cast. And I like that much better than just having electric, So he's casting magical spells in this. So yeah, you get a sense of who he is in this book, and it's not, as I said, it's not just like trying to make jokes. He's just being a young boy, and it happens to be funny. And I think when Zachary Levi is doing that, it's funnier than when he's trying to make jokes. So yeah, there you go. That's that comic. So now we can read from my Kindle. It's going to be a little bit more fun. Let's see. Stop share. Let's see what Miss Susie has to say. She's too adorable. Yeah. Yeah, they missed the mark with saying it was like big. They should have brought the Rock's ego into it. Hello, yeah. It would have. I think Shazam is more rewatchable than many of the DC movies that came around the same time. I believe so as well. I don't think that's because it's necessarily a better movie. But I think it's more rewatchable because it's just got this heart and humor that just kind of you can watch at any time and put you in a good mood. Whereas Wonder Woman, the heart and humor is so essential. The heart of that movie is so essential to it that once you've kind of lived through it, it's hard to re-experience how you first felt when you first watched the movie, and that's half the charm of the movie. So I think that's the problem with Wonder Woman, for instance, as an example. Okay, so next one. Before we go on to Shazam and the Seven Magic Lands, I wanted to go on to Superman, Shazam, First Thunder. Because I actually will be reading this one together because I've not read all of this comic yet. I just read the beginning and I thought, oh, let's read it together. So we'll read this together, and then if I have time, I'll go into Shazam and the Magic Lands and everything. Okay. So I'm not going to read along with this. I'll just read with you. And if you have any comments, let me know, and I'll answer and tell you what I'm thinking. So I'm loving the beginning of this comic. The artwork is amazing. I think this came out before New 52, but the artwork is incredible. I love the artist here. So I'm eating some nuggets, so I'm gonna mute so you don't hear me eating. Oh, good. I'm having breakfast. Yeah. So this is just lovely artwork, and again, it's shocking to me that they haven't done a Shazam animated series. You look at all of this stuff, and it's just like it's all there. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, like this is the story that they based Superman Shazam the animated film from. And this story, I don't know why they didn't just tell the whole thing, because that was like a 20-minute animated film and it was great. But it would have been lovely to see the whole story play out. And when he speaks my name, my powers, which are fueled by the gods themselves, run through him. He's just at the beginning, and the first steps on a journey can be most arduous. And he's in a battle with fate. Fate is an emotionless beast, as well as an inexhaustible foe. Late night Metropolis Museum of Natural History. Ooh, move quicker, all of you. So, be careful, you idiots. That totem is nearly 1,000 years old. Sorry, sir. You wanted us to move faster. We can be careful, or we can be quick. You can be both. The alternatives is to experience the unpleasantness worse. What? The alternative is to experience unpleasantness worse than any nightmare you've ever suffered. That isn't a boast, acolyte. That is a fact. I will try to do better, sir. You are a disciple of the Temple of Baghdad. You have sworn blood and soul to your faith. The relics we have before us are the key to the ascension. None of us will merely try. We have to succeed. The powers below demand it. Powers below? I have to tell you, I don't like the sound of that. So Superman's already come corralled them. Superman? Yep, very perceptive. There have been 6 museum robberies across the country. They all stole ancient artifacts from Europe. That wouldn't have been you, fellas. uh, so it's obviously magic, so that's why Superman has a weakness to it. A Fawcett City solar center construction site currently under siege. So this is the kind of stuff you usually see Shazam taking on, some wacky robotic creatures, or you know, like weird monsters and stuff like that. So, what have you got to say? Okay, nothing yet. Hey, Ironbutt. Catch. See, this is the thing I was trying to say, like in the about the film itself. Like say something like Fury of the Gods, where people don't get the humor of the film. It's like this is stuff from the comics. Like this is him, and if you don't like that film, some of the humor of it, where he's acting like a kid, it's because you don't like the character. That's the kind of stupid stuff he says. So anyway. So it's an interesting difference between the new 52 version and this one. Obviously, in this one, Billy is homeless, and the kind of circle around him is a little bit different. What I like is when whenever it comes to like different versions of characters, I do like to use those elements from older stories and kind of um build them into the mythology. Like this character, uh he said he's Billy's best friend. You could use that in the next comic. He could be, still Billy's best friend, right? um or use him in a different context. It's just when people like end up throwing away stuff from previous stories of the characters, I really don't like that. So his homelessness, I think it's nicer for him to have a foster family, but you could still take in that element where he's homeless at first and like look at the reality of that. But yeah, altogether I like this kind of version of the character so far. So yeah, this is the version of Dr. Savannah I was talking about, which I love much more, and I would have really liked to see the guy who played Rorschach in the Watchmen or Watchmen, Zack Snyder's Watchmen. I would have liked to see him play this character because I think he would have done an excellent job and kind of looks a bit weird like him. So I really like this version. So if anything, I would like this version to make it into the movies, add to the quirkiness of like this whole mythology rather than taking away from its quirkiness. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna read it to here. I'm gonna leave. Yeah, that would have been, yeah, it would have been interesting casting. There's a few castings I would have done, differently regarding that. But I'm gonna leave it there with this comic. There's a couple more versions I wanted to look at. Couple more comics. One that I haven't read again, and then one that I have read. Um, so there's the latest one. Actually, this is an interesting one to compare to the New 52. So uh, this is Mark Wade's version. We'll only read the first, 5 pages of this together. Um, and the Mark Wade version of this character is really interesting. Because it takes a lot of the criticisms that people have of the New 52. It takes it back to really the kind of classical Golden Age comics as well. But it also keeps consistent with the story of the New 52. So it's like adding stuff. Like, for instance, you'll see that in this comic that, the how Billy has wisdom is answered in this comic book in a way that many people would say is perhaps a little better than how they answered it in, say, the film. Oh, and by the way, I want to do some read-alongs to novels as well. I'm gonna try and do a new YouTube read-along and have a read-along community. So not just reading along with comics, but comics are obviously a little bit more interesting. Okay. So meet the captain. So instead of calling him Captain Marvel or Shazam, Mark Wade made the very interesting choice of calling him Captain. This is the latest run of Shazam now that is in, that is actually uh, in the comics. So if you want to pick up like what's going on with Shazam as a character now, it would be very much worth reading Mark Waid's story, and I like it a lot. I've read this whole comic. So yesterday I was C plussing my way through a civics test. Today C plussing. Today I'm joyriding a freaking dinosaur, man, through the freaking rainforest, right toward a cliff. Whoa! I'm not fooling around here. Oh, stop, stop. Phew, just in the nick of time. So if I try to catch this fella myself, it'll be like a balloon falling onto a nail. I would pinch right through him. This calls for a gentler solution. There you go. Dinosaur 1, gravity 0. Now for the last time, just stay calm and relax, okay? Okay? Also, I told you to slow down. Did you hear me? I dare you to find my ears. Am I in trouble? Ask your parents. They were worried sick. So this is really like kind of classic Shazam comic, like him on a whimsical, weird adventure with dinosaur aliens and stuff like that. Um, and this is what I love, and this is what another aspect that I want. They kind of did do a little bit of that in the films, but I wanted more of it in the films. So you can see Mark Waid's love of the old stuff, uh, the old stories. Captain Marvel drinking a giant cup of tea. So this is where you kind of catch up on uh, what this Captain Marvel has, where this Captain Marvel has gone since the New 52 storyline. Love the suit. The new suit is like classic suit, but like with a modern update. Oh, by the way, what I wanted to see. Ah, so they did use the new wizard. Yeah. So they in this they solved the problem of like the name that obviously was given to the Marvel comics, Captain Marvel. So they're just calling him the Captain in this, and I think this is a pretty neat reason for them to call him Captain, and I hope it catches on and they use that from now on. Okay, and this is the bit where he explains his wisdom, right? Which I thought was really neat. It's the wisdom of Solomon. People forget that Solomon wasn't all that smart. He was wise. Big difference. Solomon's power doesn't make me a genius. It helps me see my way out of super problems. Upside. But it also means that between crises, there's a tiny voice constantly whispering in my ear that says stuff like eat more vegetables or get a good night's sleep or cut down on the screen time, which gets really old really fast. So there you explain how the wisdom works with Shazam, and I thought that was a pretty neat part of the story. So that's the beginning of that story, and I think yeah, hey man. So what were we saying here? Oh, that would be interesting casting. So I would like that. I'm all into genres of books. Yeah. Uh, good. All right. My biggest nitpick in the Shazam movies was I just wished they gave Mary more time to shine. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that um, to me, apart from Pedro, really, which I don't mind him just being a background character. I feel like all of those characters could have been fleshed out because you saw the potential in Mary, definitely. I think she should have been fleshed out in the second film. I also saw a lot of potential in Eugene and Darla. That wasn't, Darla had her moments. I like that she had some good moments in the films, but I think she could have had a couple more moments. Billy never tried to cut a baby in half like Solomon. Yeah, true. Um, so yeah, that's that comic, and I think that's a really good version of Shazam. I want to see more of the Shazam family in it. I know that a lot of people are excited about this version because they aren't featured in it, but I like them. I think they're a cool bunch, and it's not like Jeff Johns took any characters away. He just added a couple of characters to flesh out the Shazam family. So that one's a fun book. I'm gonna finish this particular one, and maybe I'll do a Shazam or Captain Marvel part two. But I'm gonna finish this one. I was gonna read the new Champion of Shazam, but I'll save that for a Mary Marvel comics when we do Mary Marvel comics. But I'll finish with the Shazam Magic Lands and the Seven Magic Lands. And the reason I want to read this is because I feel like this should have been um, what the Shazam 2 film was based on. I think they should have just gone for this. Um, Different art. It's not Gary Frank this time on the art. It's Sorry about that, guys. Just a little internet glitch. Billy never tried to. Oh, yeah. Okay. I got to that bit already. All right. So let's go on to Shazam and the Seven Magic Lands. It will be the last one we do. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh, all right. Okay. So just to give you an intro of what's happening, we see just Billy exploring the magic realms. So this is up by the end of what happened in the New 52 book. The wizard has come back, and then you see them doing their little superhero stuff. Okay, they saved the day. Um, so this is what I was saying is this is the book I would have liked them to have based the new film on. Okay, so we're going to start from here where they actually go into the magic lands. Um, and they give Mary and all of the guys a lot more stuff to do. So you'll definitely like this Miss Susie. So this is what I was talking about. This is like as much as I love Fury of the Gods, I'm not. This isn't. I understand why they made Fury of the Gods, and it's not. It, basically, the movie I would have made, you could not have justified the budget given how well the first Shazam movie did. The movie I would have wanted to make would have cost at least 150 to 160 million to make, maybe even 200. But it is the natural direction that you should have gone from Shazam 1. So uh, it's much, much, much more like Harry Potter. Like it turns the story of the Shazam kids into like a Harry Potter-esque style story. And there's a villain in it called King Kid, who I think needs to become a major Shazam villain. So here we go. You get all the different magic lands here, right? So I'm going to skip all this now so that we can get to the magic lands. Okay. So you guys go and read all this bit. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I wanted to get straight into the magic lands basically. So this is where they get on the train, and you're going to see them entering the magic lands very soon. Then we'll talk about it once we get into the magic lands. Come on. Oh, and also Mr. Mind is a major villain in this version of the version of the story. So it would have been a direct sequel where Mr. Mind would have played a big role in things, but he wouldn't have been the only villain. So it wouldn't have been like super wacky. Okay, here we go. So here are the magic lands. First magic land. I'm wondering what this one is called. I think we'll find out in just a second. So it says, "Holy moly!" We're in the first of the magic lands. I told you, all Disneyland on steroids. No need to worry. The more you say it, the more I worry. We should be splitting up. Come on, Billy. Okay, here's the plan. We pair up, we check it out, we meet back here in 2 hours. But where did all the kids come from? How'd they get here? And I have my college entrance exam this week. Can you stop being the adult for once, Mary? He always wanted to take a family trip. We always wanted to take a family trip to Disneyland, but we couldn't afford to. And it doesn't matter because this is even better than. And please, Mary, don't make us vote again. 1 hour. Then we meet here and we go. Yay! So Mary kind of plays the kind of older, wiser sibling. So here you read about Mr. Mind. Um, Look at everyone smiling faster, faster. Uh, I don't know what the other lands are like, but they're never going to be as cool as this. So we're going to see. We're going to meet the King Kid in just a second. You know, maybe this was created as a kind of a break room for the Seven Champions. When they had some downtime from protecting the world, they got to chill out here. The Council of Eternity could have conjured this up for all, conjured this all up for laughs. Okay, and you see the big land. Like I could have seen this like whole land in a film, you know. And after all we've done to help protect Philadelphia, we deserve to live it up. Okay. Ooh, I hope it hasn't. Ooh. So okay, so here we go. We meet for the first time King Kid, who is the ruler of the Funlands, and I'm missing the seventh champion of the family. So this would have been a great opportunity. So you could have used this character as the essential nemesis in this series, and I would have had him played either by one of the characters from Stranger Things, um, or alternatively, I would have had him played by Harry Potter himself. Can't remember the actor's name, so let me see. So I could have had him played by Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things as King Kid, and you're going to see why I think he'd be so good. Or even Gatton Matazora, but I think maybe Finn Wolfhard is like the biggest name, or the Harry Potter actor. So it could have been like very meta. Um, uh, so Harry Potter is played by, what is his name again? I can remember this stupid guy's name. Daniel Radcliffe. So yeah, so Daniel Radcliffe would have been my number one pick for this character to be played by, or the other guy. And it could have been something that is done um, that would be kind of ironic, because obviously he's supposed to be king of kids and he's supposed to be a kid himself, but he's actually an adult. But played by like one of the biggest kind of child stars of all time. I think that would have been really, really cool casting here. And it could have been enough mm, to take away the fact that they don't have like a massive star in the role of this film, and it could have explored again, like seeing the kids more than the adults in this version of the movie, rather than them all the time being the Shazams, or the superhero versions. Before I go, because I'm gonna go, yeah, Daniel Radcliffe, thank you. It would need a big budget, but I'd love to see the magic realms explored in the movies. Yeah, exactly. So before I go, I'll show you what I think, like how I think they could have done this, right? So if you look at um, this is the Funlands, obviously. You find out that King Kid wants to basically kill all adults, right? And you could have had it like where he wants to kill all adults and take every kid alive into the Funlands or whatever. And he wants to do this because he had a tragic upbringing where adults, were really cruel to him. And so he thinks there's no reason for adults. And that could have matched with the theme of the film, which would have been that now that they can all turn into adults as Shazams, they decide that they don't, apart from Darla and Mary, all of them decide that they don't need the parents anymore. Like they love their parents, but they prefer spending all the time as the Shazam superheroes, and maybe think that the parents don't really understand, like, or aren't like smart enough to get like what responsibility they have as superheroes or something along those lines. So they're kind of a bit more reluctant to listen to their parents anymore. Maybe Billy and Darla and Mary are like more like Billy's in the middle, but Darla and Mary want to listen to the parents, whereas the other two boys are influencing Billy to like ignore the parents or something like that. And so that could be the kind of central kind of message of the movie, why we do actually need parents and stuff like that. And so you have this land, and then I think the other two parts of the movie can be done in what you'll see is the next part. So this is the origin story of King Kid. Okay, so there you go. You got the origin story there of the King Kid, which I think is, like for a Shazam villain, completely makes sense for the second movie if they're not going to have Black Adam. And then you see what King Kid, which you don't know yet, has done to the kids that grow older than 18. He turns them into these clown figures who are just servants who clean up the wildlands, basically. So this is what he's done to all the adults. It's a pretty hokey story, but it's fun, and it's like it has a throwback to those kind of 80s teen and kid movies. So I think it could really work. And so he ends up finding out that Mary is turning 18, and so he turns against the Shazam family, which you'll see here. And he stops them from saying the magic word, apart from these three. And then he banishes them to a different place. You'll find out later. Ooh. When it does that. Go back. And then we'll go to there. Hopefully it'll pick up where we left off. And so you see that Pedro and Eugene end up in a different realm. As their superhero versions. And they end up in the game lands, right? This is where Eugene's gaming skills would have come in. And so you could also tell the story of like now that they're in the game lands, Eugene has to get them out of that. And my thing is, Warner Brothers owns all these, games, you know, IPs, so they could have easily brought in like, from the first film he references Mortal Kombat, so they could have brought in a couple of Mortal Kombat characters. So it would have been the first crossover between a superhero film and and computer games. I think that would have been really, really interesting, and it would have kept up with this, ever changing market of like, oh, you've really got to wow people with really crazy stuff in superhero movies, because otherwise, you're generic and it's all been seen before. So we haven't seen, some of these superheroes facing off against like games characters. So I think that's what this version, the version in the film of the Game Lands could have been, where they actually meet characters from computer games and they have to face them to get out of the game lands, right? Like, so they have to face like Scorpion, or they have to face like, some other character that Warner Brothers owns. I think they also own The Last of Us, right? Like, there could have been a crossover. It could have been crazy. It would have been a wild crossover. I'm not gonna lie, but they could have done a crossover between that to create the game lands, and then and then Darla and Freddy find themselves in the wildlands. And in the wildlands, it's like all the kind of animals, come to life. So you could have had like a really interesting, fun kind of film where like they're just trying to escape these kind of magic lands, and we could have, met Talkie County for the first time, and this is where we meet him in the wildlands. And it's a very interesting story of why he's in here. And it could have been Talkie County who helps Darla and Freddy escape from these magic realms. So that would have been my take. And then they have to, at the end, they have to face off against King Kid and stop him from essentially turning all the parents in the world into slaves or something like that. Um, yeah, so Game Lands took look rad. They could have done a lot with that. So that's what I thought, in terms of the film they could have made. And I'm not saying the film they made was bad. I like the film they made. But you could have like again the magical anthropomorphic animals. I think that would have played well, and you could have made a hell of a trailer out of that. Where you could have teased, Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, or like one of the characters from as they're trying to get out of like say a situation from The Last of Us or something like that. You could have teased all of that in the trailer, and then with all these weird animals, and teased Talkie Townie as well. So I think the this is the movie. Maybe they wanted to make that movie. I suspect they probably read this comic, but just thought, wow, this is going to be way, way too big budget. But I think that that would have been a really, really competitive film in the superhero space. Like, I don't think anything like that has ever been done, and it would have been a way to show, oh, this is what the cool stuff you can do with the Shazam lore. Unfortunately, they didn't go that way. They went for a more traditional style superhero movie, but it was a good traditional and a fun traditional style superhero movie. I don't think it was bad in any way. It just wasn't, something amazingly different in terms of what we'd seen before. And I don't mean that it was generic or something. I don't think we've seen many superheroes facing off against dragons, but I don't think that was big enough. Just having Billy face off against the dragon, it's not a real hook to a story. It's not a good hook for a trailer. Whereas this would have been a really great hook for a trailer. They go into the magic lands. Some of them have lost their powers. Some of them still have their powers. We could have explored a little bit more of the the Shazam family. Got a little bit more from Darla. Got a little bit more from Eugene. Fleshed them out as characters and have them in this really kind of fun place. And I would still, to this day, I think even with as bad as Shazam 2 did, I think you could still pitch this movie and have like Black Adam looming in the background as well, and have that, and continue these Shazam movies. And I think it might make profit this time. But how you'd convince the studios of that, I don't know, when the last one made 130 million. But anyway, that is me. I've really enjoyed like going through all of these comics, but of Shazam. And one of the things I wanted to say reading these comics with you is to show, there are different versions of these characters, going back to the classical Shazam comics, or Wiz comics, versus, the modern day version. So it's not all about like, oh, I know everyone's got their favorite interpretation of the characters, but usually, even with every writer and artist, there's a different interpretation of the character. So with Shazam, I know that certain people didn't like the version that they got in the film. Thank you. I know that they didn't like the version they got in the film. They thought it was too New 52 influenced. But I think with patience, like you may end up getting the version that you like in the films, as long as you keep these characters alive in the cinemas. The next director might come along and have a different spin on the character. So I think again, to me, why I want to look at like the evolution of these characters. Look at this, like him fighting a rhino. This is the old days of the comics. I think that's Mary Marvel, Captain Marvel on the job. The reason I wanted to look at these early versions of the comics is these different versions of the comic, of the same comic book character, is to show how much these characters evolve. And when if they evolve in comics, they will also evolve in film adaptations, depending on the time, depending on the thing. Now, unfortunately, there might be a TV show, but I very, very much doubt. Oh, here's Golden Arrow, because I want to know who that character is. I very, very much doubt we're ever going to see, unfortunately, Captain Marvel in. It will be a long, long time before we see another Shazam movie. There's definitely going to be a recast of the whole thing. And I may not even be alive by that time. It's probably going to be 10, 20 years or something. But hopefully I'll be alive in 20 years, but it might be a long, long time before we see that. And it's sad to me, because I thought they had a really, really fun thing going in the movies. But I know people just turned against this movie. And again, I saw a lot of stuff online of Shazam fans as well, who didn't like the fact that they used the New 52 version, and they were like, I'm not supporting this movie because it's New 52. But now you're never going to get anything, the best we can hope for is, for some crazy reason, James Gunn wakes up in a good mood one day and says, hey, you know what I really want? I want a Shazam TV show, because that's the best we're going to get. Or Shazam to appear in a TV show, and maybe it gets good ratings and they want to do a spin-off. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna leave it there. And it's been really fun doing this first comic book read along with you. Next one will be Wonder Woman, and that will be next week. And we're going to look at different versions of Wonder Woman that I've enjoyed, some of the things that I would have liked to see in the films as well. Uh, hey, hey, mum, my was in her 70s, still loved Shazam. Oh, my mum was in her 70s, still loves Shazam, and she came from the golden era of comics. So there's always hope. Yeah, I think the people who read the early comics are not the ones who are hating on the New 52, because it's more these comic book golden age snobs who didn't even read the golden age comics, weren't around during the golden age, but they're always like old is better, and everything new that they're doing is it's because it's woke, and it's because it's this and that, and they complain about this stuff, and they don't really read this stuff. Because I think truly, I think back to Elvis had the thunder thing on his chest because he loved Shazam. He loved reading Shazam growing up, right? So Elvis was like a huge Shazam fan. Um, and I just imagine, I know, if, like, say for some weird reason Elvis was still around, I bet you he would have liked this. He wouldn't have been sitting there, as somebody who probably hadn't read comics since he was a kid, because he's way too cool to be reading like comic books. So he probably, maybe he throws open an old, like golden age comic every once in a while, but I doubt he would have been a huge reader then. But I'm sure he would have sat down in the Shazam film and loved every second of it, because it would have taken him back to his childhood. And there's enough of the essence of the character still there in the movie that I don't think it's completely like ruins anything. And it's the same, I often compare this to Batman 89 and Superman 78. Um if Twitter was around when Batman 89 came out, when Superman 71 and what all of that kind of stuff came out, they would have obliterated those movies. They would have destroyed them. Oh, they changed this. They didn't do that. They did, in 89, oh, the Joker was the one who killed the Wayne's parents, and Batman kills, and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, if you're a Batman fan, support the movie until the character is established enough that you don't need, then you can vote with your wallet. Because until the character becomes a big time star, even Wonder Woman, look at like how long it's taking them to do a new Wonder Woman movie. Even though the first one made 800 million, until your character becomes an established star that you can rely that Hollywood are always going to make movies of them, you need to go out and support those movies. Because if we had have treated um Batman 89 the way we treated Shazam, just because it was based a little bit on New 52 and not completely on New 52, it took shades of different things from other aspects of the comics as well. But if we had have treated it the same as Batman 89, we wouldn't be getting Batman movies now, because that movie would have bombed. Because there would have been too many people. Oh, that's not my Batman. So all of that crap, I just listen to it, and I'm just like, that is not, you know, if you're a fan of a character, like, especially a new character, say Deadpool or something like that, go out and support it. Otherwise, Hollywood will just think this character doesn't have a fan base. And that's what they probably think of Shazam now. And I think Shazam does have a fan base. It just has a salty fan base who are just fractured, and because they added a couple of ethnic kids to the Shazam family, and they gave them powers as well. Oh, let's get really, really upset about that, even though that's always been an aspect of the comic where he's always given his family powers as well. So, whatever, it's fine. But I really enjoyed reading these comics with you. I'm going to enjoy reading the rest of these comics, and it's just been fun. I want to do this again. I want to do more stuff like this, with all the controversies and arguments surrounding the films. I like to just go back to the source. Let's read comics again and have fun reading comics, and let everybody else, cannibalize and tear each other apart because of movies that are supposed to actually just be fun. It's supposed to be fun. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks so much for joining me, especially Miss Susie, who stayed around for the whole time, but everybody else who's joined me to read along with my special Shazam comics read along. It's been super fun, and I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. See you on the flip side, and I love you 3000. Peace.